Have you ever looked around and wondered why some people just seem to get rich, while others who are just as smart struggle with money their entire lives? Well, that's the big question at the heart of Robert Kiyosaki's game-changing book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we're going to break down its most powerful lessons right now in the next 5 minutes. So let's just start with a really simple question. Who taught you about money? Was it your parents? Maybe school? The answer to that question is really the foundation of this entire book, which tells the story of how one man learned about money from two totally different father figures. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the two core mindsets that shape everything. Then, we'll dive into the absolute critical difference between assets and liabilities. After that, we'll see why you need to mind your own business, how to work to learn, not just earn, what obstacles to look out for, and finally, the very first steps you can take. So the whole book is built around the central story of Kiyosaki's two dads. First, you have his actual father, a really smart, highly educated guy who was always struggling with bills. He calls him his poor dad. And then there was his best friend's father, a guy who dropped out of high school but became a seriously wealthy entrepreneur, and that was his rich dad. And you know, their philosophies on money couldn't have been more different. Poor Dad followed that traditional script we all hear. Go to school, get good grades, find a safe, secure job. He spent his entire life working for money. Rich Dad saw the world completely differently. For him, education was a tool for financial freedom, and his whole goal was simple: make money work for him.
Poor Dad often repeated a phrase you've probably heard a million times. The love of money is the root of all evil. And it's a really cautious view, right? It's one that leads a lot of people to kind of fear money, to avoid learning about it, and to shy away from any kind of risk.
But Rich Dad, he flipped that idea completely on its head. He argued it's the lack of money that's the root of all evil, that it's financial struggle that causes greed and fear and suffering. For him, building wealth wasn't about being greedy. It was about creating freedom and opportunities for yourself and others.
Okay, so how did Rich Dad actually build that wealth? Well, it all comes down to what Kiyosaki says is the single most important lesson in the entire book. You have to know the difference between an asset and a liability. Now, it sounds super basic, but this is exactly where most of us get it wrong. Rich Dad's definition is just so simple, it's brilliant. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket, whether you're actively working for it or not. And a liability, you guessed it, is the exact opposite. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. That's it. It all just comes down to which way the cash is flowing.
And this is where it gets really interesting. A rental property that pays you every month, that's an asset. It generates income. But Kiyosaki makes this controversial point that your own home is often a liability because of the mortgage, the taxes, the repairs, all that money going out. The rich, he says, focus on filling up that left column, while the middle class tends to collect things from the right, often thinking they're assets.
This whole idea leads right into another core lesson from Rich Dad. Your profession is not your business. And that is a critical distinction.
Think about it like this. Your profession is what pays the bills, right? It's your job. But your business is your asset column. So minding your own business really means using the income from your job to buy and build real assets, things like stocks, real estate, or a side business that will one day generate enough income to set you free. But hey, to build that asset column, you need more than just cash. You need skills. And this is why Rich Dad's advice was always to work to learn, not just to earn. Yeah. A high salary is great, but it's the skills that truly build long-term wealth. Learning how to sell, how to market, how to manage people, how to negotiate, these are the things that allow you to spot opportunities and build systems that can multiply your wealth far, far beyond what any paycheck ever could.
Okay, but let's be real. If the formula is that simple, buy assets, avoid liabilities, why isn't everybody rich? Well, because, as the book points out, just knowing this stuff isn't enough. You have to conquer some pretty powerful internal obstacles first.
So, just for a second, be honest with yourself. What's holding you back? According to the book, it almost always comes down to one of these 5 things. He basically calls these the dream killers. You've got fear, the fear of losing money, so you never even start. There's cynicism, which just sees problems and risks everywhere. Laziness, which avoids the hard work and discipline needed. Bad habits, like spending your money before you invest it. And maybe the most dangerous of all, arrogance, thinking you already know it all and have nothing left to learn. So, knowing the obstacles is one thing. How do you actually get over them and, get started? Well, the book lays out a pretty clear path for that too.
First, it all starts with finding a super powerful emotional reason, your why. Maybe it's freedom or more time with your family. That's the fuel. Then, commit to daily financial education. Choose that over entertainment. Surround yourself with mentors and experts who've already done it. And finally, just start small. You don't need a fortune. You just need to take that first small, calculated step to build some confidence and get some momentum going.
Ultimately, all of these steps, they're all leading to one single destination: financial freedom. And Rich Dad has a very clear, no-fluff definition for it. It's that moment when your passive income from your assets is greater than your monthly expenses. That's it. That's the finish line. That's when you finally escaped what he calls the rat race.
So we're going to end right where we started, with one simple but honestly, potentially life-changing question that sums up the entire philosophy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. When you look at your own finances, just ask yourself this: is your money working for you, or are you working for it? Because the answer to that question determines everything.